Hey guys, Tammy here. And in this video, I'm going to talk about the early bird gets the worm. Okay. Now, look, inevitably, I get the call once everything has gone south in custody cases most of the time. It's like, oh, we had an evaluation and I got the report and the report is terrible. Not at all what I wanted. What do I do? And it's like, well, when's the best time to plant a tree? Yesterday. 1,000 years ago. You know, today, I guess if this is the earliest option we have, right? But it's the same kind of thing where it's like, when's the best time to get started on developing your strategies around child custody in particular? As soon as you know you're headed in this direction, that's when to start. Because, when you get the bad result, I always say, like, undoing that is a really tall order. It's really, really difficult. It's much, much easier to do things right the first time. It's sort of like, oh, I'll wait and see what happens. And then if I don't get a result I like, then I'll try to fix it. Well, the problem is that's a lot more costly, a lot more time consuming, and a lot more unlikely to happen in the court system. You have a much, much better chance of getting the outcome you want and it costing less and being more efficient and easier for all of you if you can start earlier with getting help on how to conduct yourself. Okay. Because what happens inevitably is, I was talking to a client yesterday, and one of the things that I started with this particular client about 6 months ago, I think we started working together. And I said to him, document everything. And he's like, well, how do I know if I need to document it? Okay. If you're asking yourself that question, document it. Okay. And document it doesn't mean going to Our Family Wizard or Talking Parents. That's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is your own private log, your own private journal, your own private, however you want to keep the records. I personally favor Excel because it's sortable and, a lot easier to search and all that kind of thing than a paper document, but whatever works for you. But document, I started that as soon as we started working together. And, subsequently, about 2 or 3 months later, a custody motion was filed. And now he's getting ready to go into court here in about a week. And, the attorneys are flying back and forth with their, declarations and all that stuff from the clients. The attorney, taxed him with coming up with examples of, different things that were in the declaration, to be able to show that, what wife's narrative is in the situation isn't true. And so the log was very, very helpful. And, a couple times he was like, wow, I just happened to write this down, or I just happened to take notes on this, or I just happened to take a picture on this day, or whatever it was. And it's like, he knew he had all those resources and everything because he had been documenting. When you're not, documenting, then what happens is you go through the process and you're just kind of going along. And then all of a sudden your court hearing comes up and you go in and, or you're scrambling at the last minute trying to gather everything and going, oh, what happened 6 months ago? Let me think. What was the text message that I got? Oh, the other parent did this thing or that, but you can't really remember the details at that point. It gets fuzzier the further out you are from it. Like, what time did it happen? Things that make it credible for the court. For most people, once they're, up to their eyeballs, so to speak, in the litigation, they start going, oh, I'm scrambling to try to gather all this stuff. And then it's unorganized and it's not presented well. And it doesn't really create the full picture, tell the story of what's actually happening in your situation. Understanding from the very beginning of things, tools, and techniques that you can use right from the start that are going to help you to gain strategy in this situation. One of the biggest things that affects people, I always say, your own behavior is probably the your conduct is probably the biggest determining factor in your whole child custody case. And Thomas, my late husband, said this over and over and over. Your own behavior is what really makes or breaks the case. Because if you are behaving well, and by well, I don't mean what you and I think logically is behaving well. I mean what a judge or what the court or a child expert would be wanting to see out of you in a given situation. If you're behaving well in that train of thought, then the case becomes very easy. Thomas used to say, I can win that case every time. If I've got a client that's doing all the things that the court wants them to do, piece of cake. I'm winning that every time, especially if the other side isn't doing those things. But inevitably, what happens is crisis points happen, okay? Breakup of a family is fraught with crisis points. And in that crisis point, what are you? You're emotional. And in that crisis point, it's usually early on, and you have nowhere to turn to figure out what do I do? Okay, there's a police officer standing at my door. It's 9:00 on a Saturday night, or my ex continues to, or my soon to be ex, if you're under the same roof, especially, these things happen a lot. Okay, they're coming in the bedroom. They won't, give me space or privacy or respect my boundaries. They're disciplining the kids in a certain way that I don't agree with. They're trying to call the police on me, and I tried to grab the phone, or whatever it is. Like, when your relationship is breaking down, it inevitably just careens toward conflict. And in those moments of conflict, when you don't have somebody to ground you and to help you manage the emotions of that and help you make logical decisions, because you can't step outside yourself in that moment. When we have emotions that hit us, all the hormonal things in our body trigger. And those hormonal things are meant to keep you safe, right? That's what your body's meant to do, keep you safe. So when you get into these emotional moments where your body goes into fight or flight mode, the only thing your brain's trying to do is keep you safe. The brain isn't going, oh, well, if we end up in court 6 months from now and are divorcing, is the court going to like this decision that I made? Or, we're already divorced, but is the way I'm reacting to the other parent's behavior at pickup something that the court would like or not like if I end up standing in front of a judge and this issue comes up in 6 or 12 months? Because we don't have a crystal ball, and we don't know what things are the things that are going to be brought up in our case by the other parent, or they're going to come up, in the process of us being asked questions or whatever. And so learning these strategies early on is super, super important, and they can keep you from getting a bad outcome. And so many times I've had people say, I thought it was a slam dunk. I thought it was no problem. I thought I was just going to get what I was asking for, or my attorney told me I had a good case, or whatever. But you can always benefit from having a stronger case than you do. Even if you have a good case, you could still benefit from doing everything you can to continually strengthen that. And the way you do that is through your own conduct, your own behavior, your own communication, your own documentation, your own, process of moving through this. And look, if you're going to end up in a child custody situation, or you have ended up in a child custody situation, that is at least going to be present until the child's 18, right? And I'm here to tell you, my oldest child's 33. It still rears its ugly head from time to time. So I always tell people, like, these strategies are not just applicable in court, they're also applicable out of court, because these strategies are going to serve you through the child being 18. These strategies can help you stay out of court also, because there are ways to manage your ex. And so again, learning those techniques, especially if you're dealing with a narcissistic or high conflict person, your next however many years till your kids are 18 is going to be fraught with legal expense, the stress of the court system, the stress of the harassment from the other parent, all of those things, if you don't start learning techniques now, and the earlier you start that, the more effective it can be, particularly when we're talking about being in the court system and being in front of a judge. The more that you can stand in front of that judge with sort of a clean slate, so to speak, without having, committed any of the errors that most people commit early in the process, then you're going to be that much better off for it. And I am here to tell you that the vast majority of the errors come early in the process. Why? Because that's when your emotions are the highest. But most people don't get help at that point. They wait until they have a bad outcome in court. And that's when they're panicking and calling and trying to get a different outcome. So look, even if you're at a stage where you're not working with an attorney yet and you just think you might be going through this, it's worth the coaching to understand those strategies and to start preparing. I wish somebody had started preparing me a year before I ever filed for divorce. That would have been very, very helpful because there were a lot of things that happened during that year that I didn't handle well. That, if I had handled better or had a better understanding of the process, I would have done differently. Everything from how I talked to the kids to how I managed my ex to how I interacted with him, how I handled my finances, all of those things I could have gained greatly and my family could have gained greatly if I had understood more of that earlier on. So early bird gets the worm is the message for today. Now, if you like this video, please hit like on it. If you like it, hit like and also subscribe so that you get notified as new content is released. And if you'd like to learn more about my coaching services, go to divorceuniversityonline.com/VIP-coaching. On that page, there is a link where you can book a free 15-minute session to share some details about your situation and learn if my coaching services would be a helpful component for you at this stage of the game. All right. See you guys next time. We'll grow in number, fueled by them to see the horizon, turn us to thousands.